No one ever expects their world to unravel at midnight. For Samantha Carter, known to everyone in Willow Bend simply as Sam, it happened with a single, desperate sound, a wild, panicked neigh slicing through the silence. Sam bolted upright in bed, heart pounding, a chill running down her spine. The ranch house was quiet except for the fan humming and her own ragged breathing. She listened, tense. There it was again, a frantic, high-pitched scream, unmistakably Bella's. She grabbed her boots and flashlight, racing out onto the porch, the boards creaking beneath her weight. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of sage and dry summer earth, the moon a cold spotlight over the pastures. At the far side of the corral, chaos reigned. The horses were restless, snorting and circling. But two figures at the fence's edge held her in place. A wild Mustang stallion, Storm, battered and bleeding, and Bella, her own mare, twisting and thrashing on the ground. At first, Sam couldn't make sense of it. A dark, coiling shape wound tightly around Bella's midsection. It was enormous, almost surreal, scales glinting in the moonlight. For one frozen second, Sam's mind refused to believe what her eyes showed her. Then it hit her. A python, impossibly big, its body knotted around Bella like a living rope. Storm lunged at the snake, his teeth flashing, hooves striking the dirt. But every time he connected, the serpent only tightened its grip. Sam's pulse hammered in her ears. There was no time to think. She ran for the nearest fence post, yanking it free from the soft earth. Her hands shook, but she gripped the post tight, racing to the scene. Storm glanced at her, wild-eyed but unbroken, blood trickling from a long gash on his shoulder. Sam shouted, waving the post, but the snake's grip did not loosen. Storm reared again, this time connecting solidly with the python's head. The serpent hissed, recoiling for an instant. Sam seized the moment. She wedged the post between the coils and Bella's trembling side, heaving with all her strength. Sweat dripped down her forehead, mingling with tears she hadn't realized were falling. Bella's breaths came in short, sharp bursts, nostrils flaring, eyes rolling back. Storm screamed again, a sound raw with pain and fear, and rammed the python once more. The snake's grip faltered. Sam drove the post deeper, feeling muscles strain in her back and arms. For a moment, it felt like the world stood still. The python, the horses, the trembling earth beneath her boots. With a sudden, violent surge, the python's coils loosened just enough. Sam pulled Bella free, dragging her out from under the serpent's weight. The python whipped around, its head darting toward Sam, but Storm threw himself between them, teeth bared. Sam stumbled back, nearly dropping the post, but she didn't let go. Storm and the python circled each other, one limping, blood spattering the dirt, the other furious, tongue flicking the air. Sam forced herself to move, pulling Bella farther from danger, her hands never leaving the mare's heaving side. Every muscle screamed in protest, but she didn't dare stop. The ranch lights flickered on in the distance. Someone must have heard the commotion, but Sam didn't call for help. Not yet. The moment was too fragile, the balance too thin. Storm lunged one final time, his body colliding with the python's head. The snake reeled, disoriented, and suddenly slithered away, disappearing over the fence into the dark, leaving a trail of dust and blood behind. Sam collapsed to her knees, chest heaving. Bella was alive, but her sides shook uncontrollably. Storm staggered over, blood running down his legs, eyes glazed with exhaustion. He stood between Sam and Bella, refusing to let either out of his sight. For a minute, the only sound was breathing. Sam's, Bella's, Storm's, all tangled together in the thick night air. Then Sam saw something that made her freeze. A leather collar, half hidden in the dust where the python had lain. She picked it up, her fingers trembling. There was a tag with a name, faded but legible. Not a wild snake after all, but someone's pet, escaped, abandoned, or lost. It didn't matter now. Sam pressed her forehead to Bella's neck, the mare's heartbeat a frantic drum beneath her skin. "You're okay, girl," she whispered, not sure if she believed it. Storm nickered softly, his body still poised, still ready to defend. Sam felt a surge of gratitude and something else, a raw, aching fear that settled in her gut. She looked up at the sky, the moon glowing through a haze of clouds. The world had changed in a single night. She didn't know what dawn would bring, but as Storm pressed closer, guarding Bella and Sam alike, she knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same at Willow Bend again. The ranch seemed to hold its breath as dawn threatened to break. Sam's hands were slick with sweat and blood, her legs numb from kneeling so long beside Bella. The air was heavy with a metallic tang and the wild, earthy scent of the horses. Bella lay on her side, eyes half closed, chest fluttering with every shallow breath. Storm stood over her, sides heaving, head low. The adrenaline that had fueled Sam through the crisis had vanished, leaving her hollowed out, shaking in the chilly night. She glanced at Storm. The wild Mustang's dark coat was streaked with blood, some fresh, some old, the wounds on his shoulder and neck oozing sluggishly. Flies already buzzed around him, but he didn't seem to notice. He watched Bella with unwavering focus, his own pain buried under a stubborn will to protect. Sam felt a rush of awe. Storm, once untouchable, the wildest spirit in the herd, had thrown himself against a monster for Bella. Sam forced herself to move, running her hands over Bella's belly and legs, feeling for breaks, bites, swelling, anything she could do in the dim light, with only her old ranch flashlight for help. Bella's skin was torn in places, smeared with dirt and blood, but no bones seemed broken. Sam let out a shaky breath. Storm let out a low whinny, stumbling a step before righting himself. His eyes flickered to Sam, pleading maybe or warning her not to come closer. She recognized that look. Trust, but on a razor's edge, especially after everything Storm had been through in his life. She tried to keep her voice calm. "Easy, boy. I'm not going to hurt her, or you, I promise," she whispered, keeping her movements slow and open. Bella twitched, moaning. Sam's heart squeezed. She looked at the wounds where the python had coiled. Deep bruises were already darkening, and one puncture oozed blood, a grim reminder of how close death had come. She needed help, now. She fumbled for her phone, her hands trembling so much she nearly dropped it. She dialed Dr. Ava Nguyen, the vet, praying she'd answer. The call rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a groggy voice picked up. "Sam, is everything okay?" Sam struggled to keep the panic from her voice. "Ava, please, I need you." "Bella, she was attacked. By a snake, a huge python. Storm fought it off, but he's hurt. I don't know if Bella's gonna make it." There was a pause. Then Ava's tone snapped to sharp clarity. "Stay with them. I'm on my way. Keep Bella warm if you can, and keep pressure on any wounds that won't stop bleeding. Don't let Storm go into shock." Sam hung up, wiping her face with the back of her arm. The weight of the crisis pressed down on her, and she realized she was crying. Tears of fear, exhaustion, and gratitude. She pulled an old blanket from the fence and draped it over Bella's trembling side, whispering soft words, not caring if the mare understood. Storm swayed on his feet. He looked ready to collapse, but every time Sam tried to guide him away for rest, he jerked back, planting himself between her and Bella. Sam didn't push. She let him stand watch, even though every shiver in his legs made her want to weep. A slithering sound in the grass jolted her. Sam tensed, heart thumping, but it was only a field mouse, spooked by the chaos. Still, her nerves were shot. The image of the python, its yellow eyes glinting in the moonlight, haunted her every time she blinked. In the darkness, time stretched. Every minute felt like an hour. Sam kept pressure on Bella's worst wounds, her hands sticky with blood. She whispered to Bella, telling her stories from when she was a foal, how she used to chase butterflies, how brave she'd always been. She glanced at Storm, trying to reassure him too. "You did good, boy. You saved her. You saved us all." Suddenly, Storm's legs buckled. He crumpled to his knees, sides quivering. Sam leapt up, panic flooding her chest. She rushed to him, but he shied away, groaning. His eyes rolled, and he slumped fully to the ground, nostrils flaring with every ragged breath. Sam saw now how much blood had soaked his coat and pooled beneath him. "No, no, no, don't you quit on me, Storm," she begged, voice breaking. She checked the wounds as best she could. Storm's pulse was thready, his breathing shallow. She ripped off her flannel shirt and pressed it to the worst gash, praying it would slow the bleeding. That's when the python reappeared, just a flash of movement at the edge of the property, slipping through the grass. Sam saw the glint of its collar in the rising light. The snake paused, tongue flicking, then disappeared into the shadows. Sam shuddered. There would be questions about where it came from, but for now her only focus was on the animals who had risked everything for each other. By the time the sky began to lighten, Sam's muscles burned with exhaustion. She didn't know if Storm would last until help arrived, or if Bella's heartbeat would fade away before Ava came. The only thing she knew was that both had given everything to protect the other. Now she owed them the same, no matter what it cost her. As the first pale rays of sunlight spilled across Willow Bend, Sam sat between the two horses, hands pressed to wounds, heart pounding. She stared at the horizon, willing it to bring hope with the new day. Whatever happened next, she knew nothing on this ranch would ever be the same again. The rising sun cast a gold haze over Willow Bend Ranch, turning the dew into a fleeting mist that clung to the pastures. For a few fragile seconds, the horrors of the night seemed like a bad dream, until Sam blinked, remembered the blood on her hands, and heard Bella's low, exhausted sigh. Storm lay only a few feet away, his dark coat slick with sweat and blood, eyes half closed but never looking away from Bella. The world felt strangely silent, the calm after a night of chaos. In the growing light, Sam spotted movement at the end of the gravel drive. Her neighbors, the Langleys, were jogging toward her, faces tight with worry. Behind them rumbled Dr. Ava Nguyen's battered Subaru, dust cloud trailing in the early sun. Relief crashed through Sam. Help was here. Dr. Ava was out of her car before it stopped rolling, medkit slung over one shoulder, boots pounding the earth. She crouched beside Bella without a word, hands moving quick and sure, examining wounds, checking her vital signs, looking deep into Bella's dull eyes. "She's in shock. Bad, but not the worst I've seen," Ava murmured, barely glancing at Sam. "Keep talking to her. Keep her warm." Sam nodded, voice cracking. "Hey, girl. You're safe now, I promise. We're not leaving you." Ava's gloved hands moved to Storm next. The wild stallion watched with a wary, glassy stare. Sam braced herself, half expecting Storm to panic, but he just trembled, too weak even to protest. "He's lost a lot of blood," Ava said quietly, "but he's got fight in him. We need to get this bleeding under control, now." The neighbors stood by the fence, exchanging worried glances. Some of them had never trusted the wild horses, Storm most of all. He'd jumped fences, spooked cattle, scattered chickens, and earned a reputation for trouble. But none of that mattered this morning. Not after what he'd done. Mrs. Langley crossed the corral, hesitated, then knelt beside Sam. "He really tried to save her, didn't he?" she whispered, more to herself than anyone. Sam nodded, tears threatening again. Ava worked quickly. She flushed Storm's wounds, staunched the bleeding, and jabbed a needle into his neck, delivering antibiotics and painkillers. Storm grunted but didn't fight. "If he makes it through the day, he'll likely pull through," Ava said. "He's tougher than he looks." Sam managed a tired, shaky laugh. While Ava stabilized Bella, Sam leaned against the fence, suddenly exhausted. The neighbors began to murmur softly, watching the horses with a new kind of respect. Even old Mr. Harrison, who'd once called Storm the devil's own brute, stood silent, arms folded, eyes wide. As the sun rose higher, other neighbors arrived, bringing blankets, bandages, and thermoses of coffee. Someone laid a gentle hand on Sam's shoulder. "You did good, Sam," said Mrs. Langley. "Most folks wouldn't have risked themselves like that." Sam shrugged. "I couldn't do anything else. They're family." Storm shifted, let out a low, rattling nicker, and stretched his neck toward Bella. The mare, barely conscious, moved her head closer, their noses touching for a brief, electric moment. The sight made Sam's breath catch in her throat. Even with pain racking his body, Storm refused to leave Bella's side. Ava finished stitching Storm's worst wound and nodded to the others. "He needs rest. Bella too. No loud noises, no visitors for a while. And someone should watch that Python doesn't come back," she added, glancing at Sam. "I'll call animal control, but that snake was somebody's pet. There's a collar. This is going to be a mess." A small crowd gathered at the fence, their skepticism melting away as they watched Storm's devotion. "He's not like other Mustangs, is he?" someone muttered. "He's different." Sam nodded, wiping her face. "He's always been different. Hard-headed, wild. But I think he'd die for her." The morning stretched on. Bella's breathing steadied, but her eyelids barely fluttered. Sam sat with her, humming old songs, remembering how Bella had come to her as a skittish filly, how Storm, untamed and scarred, had once roamed the wild canyons, refusing every human's touch until Bella's gentle spirit drew him in. Now they seemed inseparable, even in pain. Storm, though hurting, stayed close. Every time Sam or Ava tried to move him away, he staggered back to Bella's side. Ava shook her head. "That's not just instinct, that's loyalty." As noon approached, the ranch felt changed. Less like a wild outpost and more like a community, with neighbors trading stories and pitching in where they could. Some folks brought hay and fresh water for the horses. Others tidied the mess left by the fight. The younger kids watched Storm with open-mouthed wonder, whispering that he looked like a storybook hero. Sam felt the exhaustion creeping in, but she couldn't bring herself to rest. She kept watch over Bella and Storm, grateful but anxious. Every sound, every bird call, every snapping twig set her nerves on edge. She knew the battle wasn't over. Not yet. When the crowd thinned and quiet settled over the ranch again, Ava sat beside Sam on the fence. "You know, people are going to talk about this for a long time," Ava said, a tired smile crossing her lips. "Storm's changed some minds today." Sam managed a small, genuine smile for the first time since midnight. "He changed mine too. I always thought I had to protect him. Turns out, he's the one protecting us." As the sun climbed higher and hope seeped into the corners of Willow Bend, Sam felt something new. A sense that the worst might be over, and that the bonds forged in one night of terror could change everything, for horses and humans alike. A hush settled over Willow Bend in the afternoon heat, as if the world itself was holding its breath. With the immediate crisis past, Sam found herself pacing the fence line, nerves frayed, thoughts spiraling. Dr. Ava and the neighbors had left to tend their own chores, promising to check back later. But Sam felt strangely alone, watchful, waiting for something else to go wrong. She set about cleaning the blood-streaked dirt near the barn, hands moving on autopilot, mind replaying the wild night again and again. Each time she blinked, she saw Storm lunging at the python, Bella's legs kicking helplessly, the cold glint of the serpent's scales. Every muscle in her body ached, but she couldn't sit still. Midday brought an unseasonable breeze that rustled the cottonwoods and sent loose hay swirling through the air. Sam spotted something half buried by the gate, the python's collar, left behind in the chaos. She crouched down, turning it over in her palm. A cracked plastic tag hung from the leather, letters faded. Samson. If found, call. The rest of the number was illegible, worn away by time or teeth. A sharp twinge of pity shot through Sam. Someone somewhere had once loved that snake enough to name it. Now, left to fend for itself, it had become a menace. She wondered what would become of it, out in the wild, where it never belonged. Dr. Ava returned a little before 2, her truck trailing a cloud of dust. She hopped out with a clipboard in hand, a grim set to her mouth. "Animal control's coming this evening," she said. "They want to catch the python alive. Maybe it can go to a sanctuary. No one wants to put it down. Not if it can be helped." Sam nodded, relief and unease twisting together. "It didn't ask for this life any more than Storm did," she murmured. Ava joined her by the corral, watching Storm and Bella from a distance. Bella was resting, head in Sam's lap, but her eyes fluttered open at their voices. Storm stood guard just a few feet away, ears pricked, watching every movement with a fierce devotion that made Ava shake her head in wonder. "You know," Ava said, "I read somewhere that wild horses, once they bond, will risk their lives for each other. But Storm, it's like he knows what it's like to be abandoned. He's not just fighting for Bella, he's fighting for himself, for all of them." Sam looked at the stallion, remembering the first time she'd seen him, fresh from the roundup, eyes wild with terror, scars along his flanks from barbed wire and worse. She'd tried to gentle him for weeks, but nothing worked until Bella was brought to the ranch. Her presence calmed him, brought out a gentle side no one expected. Now, after last night, Sam wondered how deep that bond truly went. Ava crouched by Bella, listening to her heart, checking the wounds. "She's stable, but she's not out of the woods. Storm's lucky too. That gash could have killed him, Sam, if he hadn't fought so hard, if you hadn't been here." Sam swallowed hard, emotion catching in her throat. "I keep thinking about all the times I called Storm trouble. How many times I thought about sending him away, selling him, just to keep the peace with the neighbors. I almost did last month. If I had..." She didn't finish. Ava squeezed her shoulder gently. "You didn't. Maybe for a reason." The afternoon wore on, the sun blazing. The horses slept fitfully, shifting in and out of dreams. Sam watched them, mind drifting back over the years, her own life marked by hardship and grit. She'd inherited Willow Bend after her father passed, determined to turn the battered patch of land into a refuge for creatures like herself. Lost, tough, misunderstood. Her phone buzzed, a message from a neighbor. "Glad everyone's okay. Let us know if you need anything." Sam stared at it, stunned by the simple kindness. She realized how the night's events had rippled out, softening old resentments, drawing people together who'd rarely spoken before. Maybe Storm's courage had done more than save Bella. It had forced everyone to see these animals, and each other, with new eyes. Animal control arrived just after sunset, 2 officers in khaki uniforms, moving carefully as they searched for the python. Sam pointed out where she'd last seen it, her hands trembling despite herself. The officers found tracks by the creek and set a live trap baited with chicken. "We'll check it every few hours," one said. "We don't want it to suffer or to hurt anything else." Sam watched them go, gratitude warring with anxiety. Part of her felt for the snake, a victim of human carelessness, just like Storm and so many wild creatures. She wondered if anyone would come forward to claim it, or if its story would end here alone and lost. Back in the barn, Sam tended to the horses, wiping sweat from their coats, speaking in low, soothing tones. Storm relaxed a little, letting her brush the dust from his mane, nostrils quivering in pleasure. Bella slept deeper, her sides moving steadily. Sam lingered, her own fear easing at last. Later, as dusk painted the sky purple and gold, the neighbors trickled back to check on everyone. Children peered shyly at Storm, whispering that he was a hero. Even the ranchers who'd once grumbled about the Mustangs offered gentle words, curious about how Storm had learned such loyalty. Sam shared what she knew, how Storm had come from the wild, how he'd learned to trust, how he'd found a family not just in the herd, but here at Willow Bend. She told them how Bella had coaxed him back from the edge, and how he'd returned the favor, risking everything for her. That night, as the ranch settled into quiet, Sam sat beneath the cottonwoods, watching the horses graze in the moonlight. She thought about second chances, for animals and people alike. She promised herself she'd fight to protect that bond, no matter what challenges lay ahead. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Storm's wild spirit had changed everything, reminding her and the whole community that sometimes the deepest loyalty and healing come from the most unexpected places. Night fell thick and heavy over Willow Bend, but there was no peace in the Carter house. Sam dozed in a battered armchair near the barn, boots kicked off, head slumped against her fist. A distant owl called, and the wind rattled the old tin roof. Every time Sam's eyes closed, she saw Storm's blood-matted mane or felt Bella's labored breathing under her palm. She was half awake when a sudden sharp cry jolted her to her feet. Sam rushed to the stall. Bella was on her side, legs thrashing, nostrils flaring. The mare's eyes rolled white in the lantern light, her coat damp with sweat. Sam dropped to her knees, hands searching for wounds she'd missed, heart pounding as terror clawed at her chest. "No, no, no, stay with me, girl, please." Storm, still gaunt and unsteady, pushed himself upright and pressed his nose to the stall door, whinnying low and desperate. He'd barely eaten all day, refusing to leave Bella's side even as his own legs shook with exhaustion. Sam reached for her phone and dialed Ava, voice cracking as soon as the vet picked up. "It's Bella. She's worse. I think she's crashing. Please, hurry." Ava's voice snapped awake on the other end. "Keep her warm. Don't let her thrash too hard. I'm on my way." Sam wrapped Bella in every blanket she could find. The mare's breathing came in frantic, shallow bursts. A trickle of blood oozed from one of the deeper puncture wounds. Sam could feel a tremor running through Bella's whole body, a kind of desperate animal panic that words couldn't reach. Within minutes, Ava arrived, shoulders tense, kit in hand. She went straight to work, checking vital signs, inspecting wounds, listening to Bella's heart, with a stethoscope pressed deep into her damp chest. After a long, silent minute, Ava exhaled sharply. She's gone into shock. Her system can't handle the blood loss, pain, and stress. And Sam, she's pregnant. The foal's in distress, too. The words slammed into Sam. The foal? Ava nodded grimly. Bella was trying to hide it, but she's at least 6 months along. If she doesn't stabilize soon, we'll lose them both. Sam felt her legs buckle, gripping the edge of the stall. For a few long moments, she was 12 years old again, back when her father's old gelding had colicked and died despite everything they'd tried. She remembered the helplessness, the sick ache in her chest. She couldn't let it happen again. Not now. Not after all they'd survived. Ava worked quickly, starting an IV, pushing fluids, and giving Bella injections for pain and to slow the shock. But Bella's breathing stayed shallow, her heartbeat weak and erratic. Storm stamped his hooves in the next stall, eyes wild. Sam turned to Ava, voice barely a whisper. "What can we do?" Ava's brow furrowed. "Bella's body can't replace the blood she's lost. Not fast enough. We need to do a transfusion. The best donor would be a horse that's healthy, close in size, and has a similar blood type. We can test the herd, but there's not much time." They tested each horse, drawing tiny vials of blood, but Storm was the only match. His blood, battered as he was, could save Bella and her unborn foal. Ava hesitated, glancing at the stallion's wounds and sunken eyes. "He's still recovering himself. This will put him at risk, Sam. But if we don't try, Bella won't make it through the night. The foal won't either." Sam looked at Storm, his gaze meeting hers through the rails. He seemed to understand, ears perked, head held high, as if volunteering himself. Sam's eyes stung. "You'd do that, boy? After all you've been through?" Storm nickered, pressing his nose against her hand, his body trembling but spirit unbroken. Ava prepared the transfusion kit, IV lines, bags, needles, antiseptics. The barn felt smaller, tighter, the air thick with fear and hope. Sam stroked Storm's neck, whispering reassurances, feeling his muscles twitch beneath her hand. Ava explained, "We'll go slow. I'll monitor both of them. Storm could collapse, but it's our best shot." The procedure began. Ava carefully drew blood from Storm's jugular, the dark red liquid filling the bag. She attached the line to Bella's IV. For the first few minutes, Sam barely breathed, counting every drip, every twitch of Storm's ears, every rise and fall of Bella's chest. Storm swayed, sweat beading along his neck, eyes glassy. Sam fed him soft words, her hand never leaving his side. Bella's breathing eased a little, color returning to her gums. Still, every minute felt like a lifetime. Ava kept a hand on both horses, ready to stop if either began to fail. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the barn. Sam's phone buzzed, neighbors checking in, offering prayers and coffee, anything they could do. But nothing mattered except the two horses before her. Storm looked ready to collapse, but he dug in, refusing to let go. After what felt like hours, Ava checked Bella's pulse and let out a sigh of relief. She's stabilizing. She might make it, thanks to Storm. Sam's own knees gave way, and she sank to the straw, overcome with gratitude and exhaustion. Storm stood trembling, but alive, his eyes locked on Bella as if daring death itself to try again. A hush fell. In the darkness, Sam realized she'd witnessed something rare, a sacrifice so pure it cut through every doubt, every old scar. As Bella's breathing steadied and Storm finally lay down beside her, Sam whispered, "Thank you, both of you, for not giving up, for showing me what family really means." Outside, Willow Bend was silent except for the steady rhythm of life. Horses breathing, hearts beating, hope stirring in the night. Dawn seeped into Willow Bend, coloring the barn windows with pale gold, as if to gently urge the world awake after a night no one had truly slept. The hayloft was heavy with the smell of sweat, blood, and antiseptic. Sam sat in the straw, cradling her coffee, her hands still trembling from the ordeal. Beside her, Storm and Bella rested, two battle-scarred souls lying close, the memory of crisis still lingering in every line of their bodies. Bella's sides rose and fell, slow and deep now. The transfusion had done its work. Her coat still glistened with old sweat and the remains of panic, but the wild edge was gone from her eyes. She blinked at Sam with weary gratitude, her body already protecting the foal inside her. The tiny spark of life had survived the night, fragile but burning brighter for it. Storm, too, was alive, just barely. The stallion's head drooped, his legs shaky beneath him, his wounds bandaged but still angry and red. He swayed every time he stood, but if anyone tried to move him away from Bella, he would plant his hooves and pin his ears, refusing to leave her side. It was as if, in the act of giving his blood, he'd woven himself to Bella, to Sam, to the fate of the ranch itself. Dr. Ava hovered nearby, eyes bloodshot with fatigue, her shirt stained with sweat and streaked with straw. She checked Storm's pulse for the third time, frowning in worry. "He's holding on, but just barely," she whispered, careful not to let Sam see the full weight of her concern. "You'll need to watch him. He could crash any time today." Sam nodded, numb. She stroked Storm's neck, feeling the tremors run through his muscles. "You hear that, old boy? You have to rest. That's an order." Storm snorted softly, as if mocking her authority, and nudged Bella's muzzle with his own. Ava began to clean up the medical supplies, every movement careful, deliberate. "I've called the university vet hospital. They might be able to send someone with plasma if Storm tanks. But you know how it is. Wild horses don't always take kindly to strangers." She glanced at Sam, then away. "That was one of the bravest things I've ever seen. Both of you." Sam managed a thin smile, pride and worry tangling in her chest. He didn't hesitate. "I've never seen anything like it. I owe both of them, more than I can ever say." Morning on the ranch usually meant chores, but news of the night's drama had already spread. The neighbors returned in quiet waves, not for gossip, but for support. Someone brought fresh hay, another a thermos of strong coffee, and Mrs. Langley dropped off a box of blueberry muffins that no one touched for hours. No one seemed to want to break the solemn spell in the barn. A hush fell as people gathered at the door, eyes wide with respect and a little awe. Even those who'd always kept their distance from Storm lingered, whispering about his sacrifice. Mr. Harrison, notorious for his dislike of the Mustangs, surprised everyone by quietly setting a bucket of water inside the stall before backing away, hat in hand. The children pressed close, peering at the two horses as if watching a living legend unfold. "Why did he do it?" a young girl asked Sam, her voice barely more than a breath. Sam looked down at her, seeing her own childhood wonder reflected there. "Because he loves her," she said simply. "Sometimes, when you love someone, you'll give anything, even your own blood." Outside, the wind had shifted. The python was still out there, but animal control officers reported it hadn't returned. Sam tried to push thoughts of the snake aside, focusing instead on what she could control. She took each moment as it came, grateful for the smallest victories. Bella lifting her head for a sip of water, Storm swishing his tail in annoyance when flies gathered, Ava's quiet assurance that for now, things were stable. As the morning deepened, Ava sat with Sam in the hay, voice low. "Storm's going to need time, a lot of it. Bella too. They might not ever be the same physically, but emotionally, sometimes animals teach us more about loyalty and courage than we could ever teach them. Sam looked at Storm and Bella, intertwined by blood and fate, and felt tears sting her eyes. "I'm never letting him go," she whispered. "No matter what anyone says, they're both staying. This ranch, this family wouldn't exist without them." For a while, no one spoke. The only sounds were horses breathing, hooves shifting, birds beginning to stir outside the barn. It was a moment carved out of the ordinary, a moment when loss brushed so close, only to be turned away by love and sacrifice. When the afternoon sun was high, Ava took her leave, promising to return with more supplies. The neighbors lingered, offering quiet words of encouragement before slipping away to their own chores. Sam sat alone with the horses, her heart both bruised and full. She thought of her father, of old heartbreaks and fresh hopes, and realized that the blood bond forged last night had changed everything. As dusk settled once again, Bella found her feet, shakily at first, then stronger. She pressed her face to Storm's, breathing him in, as if reassuring herself that he was still here. Storm, battered but unbroken, nickered softly. Sam watched them, feeling a kind of peace for the first time in days, a peace built not from comfort, but from survival, from the knowledge that love, when tested, can endure even the darkest night. Outside, the sanctuary of Willow Bend grew a little stronger, rooted in the courage and sacrifice of two wild souls who refused to let go of each other, or the family they'd chosen. The next few days brought a quiet so fragile, Sam worried it would shatter with the slightest wrong step. She barely left the barn, sleeping in snatches on a pile of hay, always waking to check on Bella and Storm. The community's kindness, once hesitant, had become a steady presence. Neighbors bringing warm meals, children drawing crayon pictures of the hero Mustang to tape on the barn door. Even Mr. Harrison stopping by with old ranch blankets and a mumbled apology for every harsh word. Bella was recovering, slow but steady, her appetite returning in fits and starts. Storm, though gaunt and stiff, regained a flicker of his old spirit. He tolerated the gentle touches of visitors, though his eyes always followed Sam, as if reassuring himself she wasn't about to disappear. By now, the tale of Storm's sacrifice and the python rescue had spread through the county like wildfire. But fame, Sam quickly learned, brought dangers of its own. It started with strangers at the fence, men she didn't know, rough voices drifting in the wind, trucks parked just out of sight, binoculars glinting from the roadside. At first, Sam thought they were just curious locals, gawking at the ranch that had survived a python attack. But when she noticed tire tracks deep in the mud by the north pasture, and footprints around the corral that didn't match anyone she knew, her gut twisted. That evening, as the sun bled red over the hills, Sam spotted a man leaning against her fence, hands in his pockets, eyes hidden beneath a dusty baseball cap. He watched the horses with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Can I help you?" Sam called, trying to sound braver than she felt. The man gave a slow, lazy smile. "Heard you got yourself a real prize here. Wild Mustang, right? I got a friend who'd pay good money for an animal like that." Sam stiffened. "Storm's not for sale. None of them are." He shrugged, his gaze lingering on Storm and Bella. "Things go missing out here sometimes. Thought you might like a little extra cash, what with the vet bills and all." His voice oozed menace, but before Sam could reply, the man slipped away, melting into the dusk like a ghost. That night, Sam double-checked every lock, made sure her old hunting rifle was loaded, and called her closest neighbors. "Keep an eye out," she said, her voice tight. "There are people sniffing around the ranch who don't belong." She barely slept, jumping at every distant dog bark and creak of the house. Around midnight, Storm let out a shrill, warning neigh that cut through the silence. Sam grabbed her flashlight and the rifle, heart hammering as she crept out into the night. She moved like a shadow past the barn and toward the pastures, the moonlight turning the grass to silver. Somewhere in the darkness, Storm's silhouette shifted, his body tense, ears pinned. Then she saw them. Two figures, faces masked by bandanas, moving toward the corral. One held a rope, the other a tranquilizer gun. Sam stepped into the open, voice ringing sharp as steel. "Get off my property, now!" The men hesitated, startled by her presence. One hissed, "Just want the Mustang, lady. Move aside." "Not a chance," Sam spat, leveling the rifle. Her hands shook, but her aim didn't waver. "The whole county's watching this ranch. You want to try something, be my guest. But you'll regret it." Storm reared, pawing the ground, a wild, beautiful sight in the moonlight. Bella pressed close behind him, still weak but defiant. The men muttered, weighing their odds. Then, lights flared in the distance. Pickup trucks, headlights blazing, barreled down the dirt road. Her neighbors had heard the ruckus and were coming, their horns blaring. The poachers cursed, bolting for the fence. One fired the tranquilizer blindly at Storm, missing by inches, then scrambled away into the darkness. Sam's neighbors poured into the yard, wielding bats, shovels, and cell phones. "You all right?" Mrs. Langley shouted, breathless. "We saw someone sneaking around the north field. Figured you might need backup." Together they checked every inch of the property. They found the poacher's abandoned rope and a set of tire tracks vanishing into the trees, but the men themselves were long gone. The adrenaline wore off, leaving Sam shaky but furious. She sank to her knees beside Storm, who nickered and pressed his nose to her shoulder. "You're safe now," she whispered, her whole body trembling from the aftershock. "They're gone. We're all right. Thanks to you. Thanks to everyone." That night, Willow Bend felt different, stronger somehow, forged by shared danger and loyalty. Even Mr. Harrison, usually the first to grumble, slapped Sam on the back. "You handled yourself, kid. Those fools won't be back." The poacher's attack changed something deep in the community. Sam's neighbors, once divided by old grudges and suspicion of wild horses, stood together as a single front. The ranch wasn't just Sam's problem anymore. It belonged to everyone willing to defend it. And as the first light of dawn crept over the hills, Storm stood at the fence, battered but unbowed, Bella beside him, their presence a living promise. No matter what danger lurked in the dark, they would face it together, as a herd, as a family. The morning after the attempted poaching, Willow Bend Ranch felt transformed. The fear that had clung to the land for days was swept away by a wave of determined energy. Neighbors bustling in and out, voices ringing with urgency, but also with hope. For the first time in years, Sam didn't feel like she was fighting for the ranch alone. The entire community had rallied, drawn by the courage of Storm and Bella, by the adrenaline of the night, and by a new sense of shared purpose. By sunrise, a handful of ranchers and townsfolk had already assembled at the barn, some with tool belts, others with casseroles or steaming mugs of coffee. Kids darted around the pasture, helping patch the old fence, giggling as they pretended to be Mustang guardians. Storm, his wounds now mostly scabbed over, stood proudly by the corral, watching the activity with bright, intelligent eyes. Even Bella, though still thin and frail, seemed to draw strength from the attention, flicking her ears as children sketched her in chalk on the barn wall. Sam had never seen the place so alive. Mrs. Langley took charge of organizing volunteers, making sure everyone had a job, mending fences, restocking feed, or simply keeping an eye out for trouble. Sam was almost overwhelmed by the outpouring. She'd spent so long keeping her head down, trying not to ruffle feathers, that she'd forgotten how strong her community could be when it came together. Even Mr. Harrison, who once called Storm a menace, showed up with lumber and a determined glint in his eye. Throughout the day, Storm remained the center of attention. Reporters from the local news, having caught wind of the wild rescue and the standoff with poachers, appeared with cameras and notepads. At first, Sam bristled, protective of her horses and her privacy. But as she watched Storm nuzzle a nervous child, or Bella allow herself to be gently brushed by a neighbor's daughter, she realized their story had become bigger than her own fears. It was a story of resilience, of wounds healed, of strangers becoming family, of a Mustang who risked everything for the herd he'd chosen. Dr. Ava returned with new supplies and a spring in her step. She checked Bella's vitals, smiling as the mare's heartbeat came through strong and steady. "You've got yourself a miracle," she told Sam, voice warm with pride. "And not just with Bella. That foal, she's a fighter too. I think you're going to have 2 healthy survivors here if we keep this up." Sam let out a shaky laugh, tension finally starting to drain from her shoulders. "I never thought I'd see the day. I owe everyone, so much." Ava waved her off. "You did the work. You built the trust. You and Storm." She turned to address the gathering crowd, raising her voice so all could hear. "You folks saw what a little kindness and a lot of courage can do. This ranch is a sanctuary now, for horses, for people, and for second chances." Sam felt her throat close up. She caught Storm's gaze across the yard. Steady, calm, almost wise. She thought about how many times she doubted him, how many times others had wished him gone. Now he was the beating heart of Willow Bend, a living reminder that even the wildest spirit can teach people how to stand together. As the sun climbed higher, the animal control officers returned, this time with good news. They'd safely trapped the python by the creek, and instead of destroying it, they arranged for its transport to a reputable sanctuary specializing in exotic rescues. "We don't want to punish an animal for what people did," one of the officers explained. "It deserves a chance, just like these Mustangs." The message resonated with everyone present. Compassion, not revenge, was the theme of the day. People who'd once argued about wild horses or resented Sam's stubbornness now brought homemade banners to hang on the fence, declaring Willow Bend a safe place for all creatures. A group of school children asked Sam if they could start visiting the ranch regularly to learn about horses and how to care for animals in need. The day ended with a picnic under the old cottonwoods. Storm grazed quietly nearby, flanked by Bella and a circle of children who had begun calling him Guardian. Someone started a song, and laughter rippled through the air, mingling with the low nickers of the horses. Dr. Ava gave an impromptu talk about animal rescue, explaining the science behind transfusions and the importance of protecting wild herds. Sam watched the faces around her. Weathered ranchers, shy teenagers, busy parents, wide-eyed kids, and felt, for the first time since inheriting the ranch, that she belonged. As dusk colored the fields in lavender and gold, a ripple of excitement went through the crowd. Bella was lying down, labor starting, hooves stretching and straining in the fading light. Dr. Ava moved swiftly, but the mood was calm, expectant, hopeful. Within the hour, under a sky streaked with stars, Bella gave birth to a small, wobbly-legged foal, white-socked and bay, just like Storm. A hush fell as the foal stood for the first time, Storm nuzzling its tiny flank, Bella licking it clean, exhausted but triumphant. Sam felt her heart swell. All the fear, all the pain, all the nights spent wondering if she was enough. It had led to this. To life, to healing, to a family remade through struggle and grace. Neighbors hugged, children squealed, and even the old skeptics wiped away tears. The story of Storm and Bella, of Willow Bend itself, had become a beacon. In the gentle night, Sam realized that true sanctuary was more than safety. It was belonging, trust, and the courage to let others in. And as Storm stood watch beneath the stars, Bella and her foal pressed close at his side, Sam knew her ranch had finally become what she always dreamed, a place where hope could grow wild and where every wounded soul could find a home. Weeks slipped by at Willow Bend, each one richer with the color of change. The summer heat mellowed into golden afternoons, and what had once been a battered ranch now pulsed with new energy. An energy built on sacrifice, hope, and the unlikely bonds forged between people and wild things. Sam walked the pastures every morning, boots brushing through dew-wet grass, pausing to check the fences and greet each horse by name. She always lingered longest with Storm, Bella, and the newborn foal, already called Star by the neighborhood children, after the white blaze that glowed on her forehead. Star was rambunctious, a blur of quicksilver legs and fearless curiosity. Storm watched over her with the same fierce devotion that had saved Bella's life, his own wounds fading but his spirit as bold as ever. It wasn't just the horses that had changed. The people of Willow Bend had transformed too. Where once there had been suspicion and distance, now there was laughter, shared chores, and the kind of neighborly spirit Sam had only heard about in her father's stories. Every Saturday, families from town drove out to the ranch, arms loaded with food, tools, and homemade signs declaring, "Willow Bend Sanctuary, a place for all." Even the old ranchers who had grumbled about wild Mustangs now brought their grandkids to watch Storm lead his little herd across the meadows. One crisp morning, Dr. Ava arrived with a camera and a thick stack of notes. "I've been invited to speak at the state veterinary conference," she told Sam, beaming. "I want to share Storm's story, and Bella's, and yours, with everyone. People need to know what's possible when we let animals show us who they really are." Sam felt a flush of pride and nerves. She'd never wanted fame, but as she watched Ava kneel beside Star, snapping photos and recording every curious twitch of her ears, she realized their story could matter beyond Willow Bend. Maybe, just maybe, it could change how people thought about wild horses, about compassion, about what it means to create a home. With Ava's encouragement, Sam began hosting school groups and volunteers every week. Children from all backgrounds, city kids who'd never touched a horse, local teens learning animal care for the first time, spent afternoons at the sanctuary. They mucked stalls, filled water buckets, and listened with wide eyes as Sam told the tale of the night Storm fought the python, the rescue, the sacrifice, and the birth of little Star. They learned about Mustang herds, about empathy and trust, about how a single act of courage can ripple through a community. One afternoon, a young boy named Miguel, shy, nervous, the son of a new family in town, approached Storm with a carrot in trembling fingers. Storm lowered his head, gentle as rain, taking the treat and standing quietly as Miguel stroked his mane. Sam caught the boy's mother wiping her eyes and realized that this ranch, these horses, were healing more than just animal wounds. Word spread, and before long, Sam was fielding calls from teachers, animal lovers, and even journalists. Willow Bend's mission expanded. With guidance from Ava and a handful of passionate neighbors, Sam transformed old storage sheds into classrooms. She hung photos of Storm and Bella above chalkboards, painted murals with the kids, and built shaded paddocks for new rescues. 2 retired police horses, a miniature donkey abandoned in a parking lot, and even a flock of battered chickens needing a safe place to land. At first, the work overwhelmed her. There were moments, late at night, when Sam sat on the porch, hands aching, heart racing with doubt. Had she taken on too much? Was she really strong enough to run a sanctuary? To honor the trust that Storm, Bella, and the entire community had given her? But every morning brought reminders that she wasn't alone. Neighbors who showed up before dawn, kids who begged to help, Ava's steady reassurance, and the unspoken promise in Storm's steady, unwavering gaze. One day, as September sun slanted gold through the cottonwoods, Dr. Ava brought a group of colleagues from the university. They toured the sanctuary, asked questions about the horse's recovery, and marveled at Storm's calm, almost human intelligence. Ava stood at the gate, speaking to the group. "This ranch is more than a rescue," she said. "It's living proof that animals, when given kindness and respect, become partners in healing, not just for each other, but for every person lucky enough to cross their path." Sam listened, her heart swelling with pride and humility. She glanced at Storm, grazing quietly with Bella and Star in the field, and felt a profound sense of gratitude, a gratitude rooted in struggle and loss, but blossoming now into something rich and lasting. The ranch itself was changing too. With help from the community, Sam built a new barn, sturdy and bright, its walls painted with the names of every animal saved. She added a visitors center and set up trails for guests to walk among the herds. Evenings brought families gathering under the stars, sharing stories and listening to the soft music of horses breathing in the dusk. But more than anything, Willow Bend had become a place where broken things, wounded horses, frightened people, lost animals, and lonely hearts, could heal together. Sam watched friendships bloom between unlikely pairs, saw neighbors who'd barely nodded at each other before now working side by side, laughter ringing out where there once had been silence. Storm was no longer just a wild Mustang. He was a legend, a teacher, a friend. Children ran with Star at his heels, visitors listened raptly to Sam's stories, and the sanctuary's mission grew with every life it touched. As the days shortened and autumn crept across the fields, Sam stood at the pasture's edge, hand resting on Storm's strong neck, and understood that Willow Bend was not just a sanctuary for animals, but for hope, for second chances, for the courage to begin again. Months passed, and Willow Bend changed with the seasons. Summer's golden haze melted into autumn's crisp blue skies, and then the gentle hush of winter arrived, softening the edges of the pastures with frost. Through every shift, the heartbeat of the ranch never faltered. It pulsed in the steady rhythm of horses' hooves, the laughter of children, and the quiet conversations between old friends. The story of Storm, Bella, and the foal named Star had woven itself into the fabric of the land, a living legend that belonged to everyone. Each morning, Sam found herself up before the sun, boots laced tight, breath clouding in the early air. The routine never felt burdensome. She greeted each horse by name, pausing longest with Storm, who had become not just the herd's protector, but the soul of Willow Bend. Star raced beside him now, a bright streak of mischief and spirit, always eager to leap fences or nose into Sam's pockets for treats. Bella watched over them both, her eyes gentle, her scars fading beneath a thick winter coat. The ranch had become a sanctuary in every sense of the word. Sam's heart swelled each time a new visitor passed through the gates. City kids trembling with awe at their first touch of a horse. Veterans finding quiet strength among the animals. Families bringing their own stories of loss and hope. The lessons learned under Willow Bend's open skies traveled far beyond the pastures. News articles and television segments had brought curious travelers from other states, drawn not just by the Mustang's wild beauty, but by the tale of sacrifice, community, and healing. Sam kept a journal now, scribbling notes after long days, small stories and big truths, memories she wanted to preserve for the children and neighbors who'd made the ranch what it was. She wrote about the night the python came, about Storm's courage and the moment when everything changed. She recorded the births, the setbacks, the small victories, like Miguel learning to ride for the first time, or Mrs. Langley baking an extra loaf of bread just to leave at Sam's door. Every page was a reminder that family could be built, chosen, and fiercely protected. On a rare day off, Sam would sometimes stand at the highest point of the property, arms crossed, eyes scanning the distant hills. She watched Storm lead his herd, Bella and Star close by, the other rescues content and healthy in their paddocks. Sometimes she saw Storm silhouetted against the sun, mane and tail tossing in the wind, and thought, "He's not just surviving, he's living. They all are." Willow Bend became a place where wounds, both visible and hidden, could heal. Dr. Ava's veterinary students arrived every semester, eager to learn from the Mustangs and from Sam's quietly steadfast leadership. The ranch's visitor center filled with photos, letters, and paintings sent from across the country. One wall was dedicated entirely to the heroes of Willow Bend: Storm, Bella, Star, the other rescued animals, and the faces of children who found new confidence among the wild horses. The school visits grew more frequent. Sam took special pride in leading each group out to the big pasture, letting the children scatter grain for the horses, showing them how to read the subtle language of a flicked ear or a swishing tail. She told them about loyalty, about second chances, and about the choices that make us brave. Not with lectures, but with stories. Each time Storm would wander close, letting the youngest, shyest children stroke his neck. "He knows who needs him," Sam would say, smiling as another nervous hand found its courage. The lessons at Willow Bend were never written on a chalkboard. Instead, they grew out of muddy boots, gentle touches, shared laughter, and the way a wounded animal could teach a person to hope again. Sam saw it every day. A troubled teen sitting quietly in the barn with a stray dog, a father and daughter fixing fences together, their words few but their bond strong. A neighbor who once feared horses now coming by just to watch Star gallop in the sunrise. And always, Storm was there. Sometimes playful, sometimes solemn, always watchful. He was proof that wildness could be trusted, that trust could be earned, and that family meant standing together through every trial. Sam often found herself talking to him in the quiet hours, sharing her doubts and dreams, knowing he would listen as only a true friend could. As winter deepened, the community gathered at the ranch for a celebration. The anniversary of the night that changed everything. The barn was strung with lights, the air alive with music and laughter. People swapped stories over chili and pie. Children reenacted the great Mustang rescue with stick horses and plastic snakes, and Storm basked in the attention, eyes shining with quiet pride. Sam took the chance to speak. Not from behind a podium, but leaning on the fence, surrounded by the horses and her neighbors. She thanked them for believing, for fighting, for loving every wounded creature who came to Willow Bend. "This ranch isn't just mine," she said, voice thick with emotion. "It belongs to everyone who's chosen to care, no matter how hard it got, or how wild the storms. What Storm showed us is that family isn't just who you're born with. It's who stands by you when you need it most." Her words rippled out into the night, echoing among the cottonwoods. The lesson wasn't just about animals or ranching or overcoming the odds. It was about courage, trust, and the power of compassion to transform not just a place, but an entire community. As the celebration wound down, Sam stood alone for a moment, watching the stars spin above the fields. Storm grazed nearby, Star chasing moths in the moonlight, Bella standing calm and content. The ranch was quiet, peaceful, alive with the memory of all they'd survived. She knew the challenges would return: the weather, the work, the risks that came with loving wild things. But she also knew, deep down, that the legacy of Willow Bend would endure. As long as there were open skies and open hearts, as long as people were willing to learn from the wild and the wounded, there would always be hope. The story of Storm, Bella, Star, and the family they built would live on, not just in the fields of Willow Bend, but in every person who carried its lesson forward. True family is built on sacrifice, trust, and standing together when it matters most. Sometimes, the wildest spirits are our greatest teachers, and so, under the vast sky, as laughter faded and horses drifted toward sleep, Willow Bend stood as a promise that courage and compassion, once sown, could transform the world, one life, one lesson, one open heart at a time.